The gentleman from California is now recognized 5 minutes.
Thank you. Ambassador, you certainly spoke over here. You certainly spoke passionately about limiting the Insurrection Act. I find that interesting when the people of your party here have used the word practically nonstop for the last 3 years about the actions of people who in a disorganized but terrible way did something, but they've raised it to the word Insurrection Act. I would hope that that you would denounce that just as much as an excess. It is not the Civil War. It is not troops trying to succeed from the Union. I want to hit one more thing, since it wasn't the subject du jour, but you made it part of it today. In your time as ambassador during the Obama administration, you probably wouldn't have been as thrilled when the ACLU said that they questioned the killing of al-Awlaki in Yemen, a 16-year-old American citizen born in Denver that President Obama fired a predator, using a predator, killed with Hellfire missiles because he was such a clear and present danger halfway around the world. So I hope that you're just as excited if the ACLU or some other civil liberties group brings charges for the lack of due process and the killing of an American, not the attempt to capture, not the attempt to stop any other way, but killing them in another country. I'm going to bring up Mr. Lynch, who's a dear friend and I've traveled with, and I appreciate him. He seemed to think that this hearing wasn't that important and shouldn't be on this subject, but rather other subjects. And then he left. I think he's left, yes. So, Mr. Fang, I'm going to ask you, you're familiar with the term, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech?
Yes, sir.
Is it fair to say for both you and Ms. Richardson that the expression, if the Founding Fathers now were looking at where we are, Congress shall make no, they might write, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, and the NSF shall award no grant that abridges speech. Is that a fair extension that the grants, the money to abridge by the federal government is in fact an abridging of speech, not by Congress making a law, but by Congress appropriating money that then is used to abridge free speech?
I believe the potential is there, and I think the Supreme Court has ruled that it's axiomatic that the government can't censor by proxy. And if there's evidence of that, that does raise alarm.
Well, I'm actually getting to the question of money, the awarding of grants for a moment. Congress shall pass no laws. It's been well established that the executive branch shall not interpret a law in a way that would abridge free speech also. In other words, it doesn't just bar us from making laws, it bars the executive branch from abridging free speech. Is that correct?
That's right.
It even would bar the Article 3, the federal court, from abridging free speech. So this is not a law, even though it says Congress shall make no laws. It's constitutionally all three branches, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, so when Track F was spending money and all the other programs you've heard mentioned today, each one of those, by definition, when they choose censorship, they are truly using federal dollars to make decisions about what speech is heard and not heard.
I think the concern is certainly there.
Well, now I'm hearing you're sounding like the independent you are, but I'm hearing the potential, but abridging, meaning to limit or restrict. Do they limit or restrict? Does any censorship, by definition, limit or in that way?
Look, if there's evidence of any of these government contract programs being used to censor Americans' speech, then of course.
Well, clearly there was. Ms. Richardson, I'm just going to go to you and both of you, and quickly, the limiting of speech. Anytime you write an algorithm or you influence an individual to take down or not print something, is there any question in your mind that if you wrote something as a journalist and then it didn't show up, you'd be, by definition, abridged?
I think the concern here is that these algorithms are being used to target particular kinds of speech, and yes, if
No, I'm not worried about kinds. I'm worried about speech, period. I'm trying to remember that they may take down liberal speech someday. They've actually said Mr. Trump would do that if he got back in. Mr. Fang, if you wrote an article and it simply disappeared from the internet, all or part, would you say you were abridged?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I'm going to give, because you've been shaking your head so much, Mr. Lukanoff, would you say that that is the crux of this? Not a question of whether we as Republicans somehow can't be made as good using AI, but more broadly, we have a responsibility to make sure neither the Article 1, nor Article 2, nor Article 3 branch of government shall restrict or inhibit or abridge free speech. Is that correct?
Agreed. And it's one of the reasons why I've been a little puzzled by the hostility to the Murphy v. Missouri decision, that essentially limiting the power of government to coerce social media platforms into censoring opinions that the government itself cannot censor under the First Amendment should be something that should be bipartisan agreement on. If you're afraid of the next guy abusing that power, and you should always be, then you should also support the idea that jawboning is a problem.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.